Now this is exactly what you want to see at the start of a walk on the London Loop. We've clocked the first signs of the day straight out of Coulsdon South station. Bodes well for the walk ahead. The reason I'm so pleased to see a London Loop sign is I don't have an Ordnance Survey map for this part of the route. So I'm reliant on those signs, and I've printed out the Transport for London route maps with directions, which are okay. They help. They do definitely help. And cross the road unnecessarily there. If you're doing this again, you come out of Coulsdon South station, you don't need to cross the road as I've just done. You go up there, which is odd. So that is what I'm going to do right now. I was going to say the problem, not necessarily the problem, the issue I have is that I'm doing the London Loop in the reverse direction. And I mean, I should explain what the London Loop is. I've made the assumption you've been following my journey over the last 3 years. The London Loop is a 150-mile orbital path around London. And it's broken into, I think it's 24 sections. I should know by now, shouldn't I? And yeah, they start at Erith and they go clockwise around and finish on the other side of the Thames at Rainham, I think. But I started up at Enfield and I headed anti-clockwise. So, you know, how you doing? You all right? Yeah, and I went anti-clockwise, which has been great, but it means all the directions are backwards for me. So yes, that's what we're dealing with. But today it sounds like this first section we're going to do, we're doing section 5 here, and it's I think it's going to be very sort of bucolic. And it's a beautiful day. It's 22 degrees. I'm missing a couple of matches in the Euros, Wales versus Switzerland. I can't remember what the other one is. But it was great watching Italy last night. Played a fantastic football. Watch out, I'm going to make a prediction at the beginning. I think Italy could well win this tournament. I mean, they'll probably lose on penalties against Germany, I guess. But here's an interesting little feature. Right near the beginning of the walk, here we got the edge of Farthing Downs, which is our first bit of open space. Look, you've got the coat of arms of the City of London. And that's because this open space here was preserved by the City of London, the Corporation of London. I think it was an Act of Parliament of 1878. So I think it's, if not the same Act of Parliament, it's a similar Act of Parliament which preserved Epping Forest. It's when there was a lot of concern about the erosion of open spaces caused by the development of London. Ooh. So this section of the London Loop takes us just beyond the edge of Greater London. We'll finish this section, section 5, at a place called, it's called Hamsey Green, just outside. Otherwise, this is actually Croydon, the London Borough of Croydon. Look at this. Isn't it gorgeous? This is spectacular. And we're going through a chain of commons from Farthing Down here. We're going to go through Happy Valley and Devilsden Wood. I mean, just the names alone are worth coming out here for this. This is spectacular. This is London. Farthing Down has been on my list actually for a little while, since I saw that there were earthworks here somewhere. I'm not sure much about them at all actually, so I'll put some information on the screen. I don't think they feature on the London Loop though, because they're not mentioned. There are some earthworks later on, but not the Farthing Downs ones. So my guess is that they must be on the other side, over there. I think, or rather I hope, that that is Devilsden Wood over there on that other hill. I mean, I could just look at the map, I guess, but where's the fun in that? Having checked the map here, it looks as though Devilsden Wood is actually straight ahead. That is a different wood over there, but we will be going through it, I think. Beautifully weathered old post here. Tells us that this is actually the Happy Valley Way and the Farthing Downs something. I think I'm just going to carry on. At some point we've got to turn left off here and go to the other side there. I'm always thinking that I've missed the path, missed the turning, but wouldn't be the first time. When I've had an Ordnance Survey map and directions, I've slightly sometimes felt they were a little bit unnecessary, and I didn't really use them because you can just walk between the London Loop signs on some sections. And then one section I thought, well, maybe you don't need a map for this. Maybe you can just do it without a map, just follow the signs. And as soon as I did that, as soon as I said that in the video, I got completely lost and went the wrong way. I had to walk back for about a mile. So I'm starting to wonder now whether that is the case. Not sure. I should be going through a wood pretty soon, Devilsden Wood, but maybe it's just up here. Do you think someone is maliciously removing London Loop signs? Look, you can see there, it's missing from there. I think it's pointing down there. I've seen this before. Maybe someone twisted their ankle badly on the London Loop, but I'm going to go down, I'm going to take a punt. I'm not sure if this is a case of the signs being removed, they just haven't been put in yet. It's interesting, but it indicates it is on some sort of route. You can see how chalky the ground is here. So I had a feeling we're walking on a chalk ridge. And I think really this is the same kind of geology as the Downs. I could be wrong. Maybe this isn't the London Loop at all, actually, you know. Look, got the bridleway, and we got the public bridleway Happy Valley. There's a point though where you just think it's a nice walk. Let's go this way. So there's a strong possibility that this here isn't the London Loop, but it's going in the general direction of it. So with the map that I've got, the Transport for London map, I can tell the general direction that it goes in, so I should be able to find it sooner or later. It's something that I've encountered before, as I'm sure you can imagine. I think this must be, I'm guessing this is Devilsden Wood, because it's where it appears to be on the map, which is a strip of really ancient woodland. Apparently it's on the oldest maps of the area. We've got the Downland circular walk. We've basically got every type of direction apart from the London Loop. But even so, this is such a great path, I'm going to keep going. My impulse to come out here today was very similar to the impulse which first got me on the London Loop. And it was on a Saturday back in January 2018. I didn't really know where I wanted to go for a walk. I know I wanted to go somewhere. I didn't have anything prepared. And I just kind of wanted a route to do a pre-mapped route rather than make my own one. I thought, let's give it a go. I'd seen the signs before and I also thought, no, I like to do my own walks. But I went out, did the Enfield to Cockfosters section, which was just beautiful, absolutely fantastic. I'm pretty sure now that I'm back on the London Loop. I think the London Loop goes up there. So if you're doing it clockwise, that's the way you're going to go, up that. So I think we're back on it. And it was just brilliant. I couldn't wait to get back out there. And actually when I did the bit next, I kind of did make up my own route actually, because the route the London Loop took was through an area I'd walked quite a few times. So here's a decision point. Look, we've got this lovely big wide grass way. I think we go here. Let's have a look up here. And similar today, I had actually thought about going out to the coast and walking along one of the peninsulas, and I'll be honest with you, I just didn't really fancy getting a train to Chelmsford, then trying to get a bus to Malden, and then trying to get home again by public transport, which is quite difficult out that way. And a few of the other places I looked at were the same, and there might have been areas I didn't have an Ordnance Survey map for, so I'd have to go and find an OS map, and which you really need when you walk along those Essex kind of estuaries. There's river walks there, because as you see, if you see my river crouch walk, they do kind of go all over the place. So the London Loop is perfect, and straight away you're transported. Straight away you're in a really beautiful, magical realm. And it's the reason I love the London Loop. Sometimes we don't have a map, you're not sure of the way on the London Loop. You can sometimes get lucky and bump into somebody else walking the other way, because everyone's walking the other way, right? The people who've got the guidebook, and there's a group of people there, and I think they're walking on the London Loop in the opposite direction. Well, this must be one of the most spectacular starts to a section of the London Loop. I'm trying to think of one that's more spectacular, and I can't. My guess, because I am quite slightly guessing, is to go up here. There's a picnic table there, which I think is mentioned in the directions. Yes. My London Loop instincts served me well. Carry on up this hill. It was hotter than 22 degrees. Kind of struggling in the heat. It's beautiful though, I love it. So I think now we're going through Happy Valley. I think this is definitely a valley behind me. And I was reading on the, I think it's the Friends of the Happy Valley website, that this land was purchased in 1937 to create a section of the green belt around London. And at the time it was considered to be the most picturesque valley in the area. And you can see why, can't you? To be honest, it's worth coming down here just to look at this view. Onwards. How many of you were thinking that I was lost, eh? Oh, ye of little faith. I will get lost before this walk is finished, but not yet. So here's a site familiar to my regular viewers, the coat of arms of the City of London here, Coulsdon Common, also part of the land preserved by the Corporation of London. We've got some great interpretation boards here. Coulsdon Common took its name from the medieval manor in which it lay. Poor cultivating soils since Anglo-Saxon times, so it was just like grazing land really. It created a once windswept landscaped ideal for the two windmills that stood nearby. Somewhere out there, I guess. And then today, oak and thorn covers much of the old heathland. But where it is more open, you can still find surviving patches of heather and gorse. Oh, it's really great. The old estate of Merlewood, that's a good name, isn't it? And you can see where we are here, I guess. We've got to go along Fox Lane, up Roydon's Lane that way, loop marked on here. I wonder if this drinking fountain here on Coulsdon Common. So I was just interrupted, look, there's a load of bikers doing a ride around the area. I wonder if this drinking fountain here marks the site of the windmill. Seems to be in roughly that location, doesn't it? The Fox pub over there, which I think is where the bikers have gone. It looks very enticing, but I'm only a couple of miles into a walk. I mean, I will make exceptions and stop for a pint, maybe 10 or 15 miles into a very long walk, but certainly not 2 or 3 miles into a walk. Continuation of Coulsdon Common. Coulsdon was a place I'd never actually heard of before I did the London Loop, I'll be honest with you. I think I say this every time I walk the London Loop, is that it really makes you appreciate just how much green space there is around London. And I don't just mean parks, I mean rural, open land. So much of the London Loop either passes through farmland or woodland, big stretches of common land. It really opens your eyes to what a verdant green city we live in. It makes me think of a quote I put on my blog a few years ago. It goes something like, the city isn't the opposite of nature. I think there they really mean like the classic urban landscape, but this is part of the city. This is part of Greater London. What a majestic Ancient oak tree we have here. There is a famous oak on this walk, and my guess would be that this is it here. What a majestic tree. Whole realms could dwell within the shade of this tree. Just a touch of road walking here as we go along Roydon's Lane, hopefully, but not very far. There's a couple of loopers coming the other way. In a lot of ways, this is the beauty of the London Loop. I was just thinking, I'll be really disappointed if the London Loop doesn't go up that little track there that leads off this housing estate, and it does, which is fantastic. One of the Queen's post boxes there. And here we have the London Loop. Up this chalk path here. Look at that. Look at all the chalk and the tree roots. Fantastic, eh? Very nearly missed this turning. Can you see that arrow? I think is pointing left, isn't it? Pretty sure it is. This way. Well, that's an intriguing sight ahead. I haven't seen any observatories on the London Loop before. Wow, look at this. This is fantastic. I wonder what this observatory here is. I wonder if it's anything to do with the RAF base up ahead. What a beautiful sight. So it's the Norman Fisher Observatory, part of the Croydon Astronomical Society. What a beautiful sight. A fair few of my London Loop walks have been in the winter across some very muddy terrain, and I'm really grateful that I'm not walking this in the winter, because I can see this field would be a bog in the winter. But in the summer, it's heaven. Betts Mead. That's the way ahead. This has been a really stunning section of the London Loop, or just a stunning walk anyway. It's so beautiful to be out here today in the glorious London countryside. Just saw a fella walking along holding his London Loop handbook, so fairly safe to assume he was doing it. So I said, "Are you doing the London Loop?" He said, "Yes." I said, "I'm doing it the other way." And he went, "Wow, radical." And he just walked off. Really, that was it. It was no like, goodbye, enjoy the rest of your walk. None of that, just cracked on. I think he was heading for the Fox pub. If you watch this video, it was lovely to interact with you on the path. Thanks for stopping to talk to a madman. I was just filming myself walking and then realised that the London Loop goes off to the right here and not straight ahead. Quite an overgrown path of stinging nettles here. Not great when you're wearing shorts. I know some of our international viewers might not be familiar with stinging nettles. I don't know if they're particular to Northern Europe. I know my wife wasn't familiar with them. She's Australian, for those of you that don't know. Oh look, we've got a London Loop sign. I have to say, apart from that bit near Devilsden Wood, the London Loop signage has been great, so we turn right. Just after praising how good the signage was, this one is missing, the turning into Golf Road. That's all right though. I had a feeling I'd seen it in the directions. More Corporation of London, City of London Common land here, Kenley Common. We've got some information that talks about, it's quite poetic for a bit of information board copy. Today the hiss of gliders mixes with the aerial song of skylarks on the airfield's edge. Isn't that beautiful? Look for fragments of the original Common's acid grassland shown by yellow stars of Tormentil. Isn't that beautiful? Drifts of bluebell grace the ancient coppice woodland, listened for woodpeckers drumming in the spring. I wonder who wrote that. That's really beautiful. And it was a fighter station in 1940, part of the Battle of Britain. It looks as though it was a World War I airfield as well. So these are the RAF blast bays that protected the fighters when they were on the ground. It's great, isn't it? There's brick and concrete there. Now there are bat caves. The life expectancy of a Spitfire pilot during the Battle of Britain was just 4 weeks. Incredibly courageous young men that volunteered to take to the skies, knowing that they wouldn't live long. And you can imagine the drama of this site here when they were scrambled to the air, knowing that it might be their last flight. And how peaceful and serene it is today. Such a contrast. It's incredible to think of the fighters being scrambled from here during the Battle of Britain. And the future of the country was genuinely at stake. Big thank you to the gentleman who saw me looking at my directions, asked me if I needed any help, and I said, well, are there any remnants of the of RAF Kenley? And he said, let me show you. So he changed his route to come and show me these blast bays and point out the features on the other side there. That's the old airfield over there. Just taken off from the airfield here. Quite difficult to pick it out. That's the Air Training Corps. Wow, that's pretty spectacular. Chalk quarry there on the far side. That's amazing. What a sight to see on the edge of Greater London. Just had a sandwich here, sat down in the grass, beautiful spot. Look at my view for my afternoon tea. It was a roll that had been sat in my bag for a few hours, which I think, you know, warmed it up nicely. So now I feel rested. I can crack on along this path here. Just seen there's a bench. I could have sat on that bench over there. No, it's better to sit down in the grass. Although a Labrador did take quite a strong interest in my ham roll. I'm not entirely sure where today's walk will end. I don't think I'll do the whole of the next section, partly because I don't think I've got enough time or energy, frankly. The next section's about 10 miles, but I'll do a chunk of it. I think I'm going to measure today's walk more in hours than in miles, or in sections, in fact. So I think I'll probably do maybe another 2 hours. That's not many miles, by the way, at the pace that I film, if you know what I mean. I think I do well to cover 2 miles an hour, to be honest with you. I had slightly strayed off the London Loop a little bit as I crossed Kenley Common, but look, you can see here, I found it again. My London Loop instincts is going through the edge of this little bit of woodland here, so that should be delightful. I was going to walk down the edge of the field, but let's stick on the London Loop into the woods, into the cool shade of the woods. Down a set of wooden steps now. I think we have a Victorian viaduct to look out for and a Roman road, in fact. Out into a little suburban street. I think we go straight down there and over the train tracks. Well, I have to say, this must be one of the most dramatic vistas in London, I would say. Walking over a bridge right up into a chalk quarry. It almost looks vaguely mountainous and alpine, doesn't it? Well, the London Loop signs there are actually pointing in 3 directions. The direction I've just come from, and then left and then right. It could be either way. I need to refer to the directions now. It's actually left. Look, I can see the path just up ahead by that white van there. Another city of London Common that we're crossing now, Riddlesdown. So this is where we encounter a Roman road, and apparently there's a burial mound up here as well. So this here must be the Victorian Iron Railway Viaduct. It's not the best angle to admire it from, but it's the one we've got. And this is the way ahead. How beautiful. I have to say, even though this is almost certainly the most picturesque section of the London Loop I've walked, I think, I'm pretty sure it's certainly the one that's made me work the hardest, partly because of the heat. I've walked in hotter temperatures on the loop before, when I walked from, I think it was from Moor Park to Uxbridge, but it wasn't uphill. I mean, there's been big hills in the past on the northern section. You just have one climb up and then you're walking along the ridge or the high land, and then you come down on the west by the see, when I get tired like this, my brain, I can't find my words. It's good to have a good cardio workout, I think. The nature of London as a basin really comes home to you when you walk the London Loop, as you're walking around the edge of that basin. And we turn even steeper uphill here. Wow, that's an amazing view from up here. Well worth the climb, getting all puffed out. So my guess is that this is the old Roman road that we cross. I mean, I'm saying that partly because it's straight, but look at this. Has the look. It also has the look of an old railway line, doesn't it, as well? So I'm not going to try and claim that I've got an eye for such things. But here's the London Loop sign as well. It's always a good day when you get a trig point, isn't it? Look at that. I do love a good trig point. SOS. Save our skylarks. Yeah, skylarks nest on the ground. Look at that, Britain has lost 61% of its skylarks in the last 40 years. So keep your dog on a short lead, stay on the march path. Easy enough done. I love walking Roman roads. If this is the Roman road, it may not be the Roman road, but I mean, I still love walking Roman roads, even if this isn't one. I can feel it though. I can hear those old Roman sandals. But this turns out to be the old disused railway line. Well, maybe neither. Maybe it's just a little track that leads through the downs here, across the downs. It did say actually you cross over a Roman road, so this probably isn't it. It's probably the one down there. Don't let that destroy the romance. So looking at the TfL information for this section, it does say that the Roman road is down there, sort of near the Railway Bridge area, around that time, sort of near Godstone Road. So my romantic visioning of this track here as the Roman road and the legions walking along it, I think I'm going to leave that in, forgive me, you know, because it's about the romance of the idea, isn't it, rather than the reality, or is it? I know some of you are really hung up on the, you know, getting the facts and figures right, but this is about the journey, never lose the romance of the journey, the romance of the road. That's what the London Loop is all about. Unfortunately, without an Ordnance Survey map for this area, I haven't really got any hope of finding the Saxon burial mounds that are here somewhere. They're often not marked on the ground. Frequently they're not. I suppose that was to prevent grave robbing or attempted grave robbing, which is a shame, but we'll carry on now. We've got about half a mile to go, I think. Broken out into the houses now, and the London Loop continues along this road here. So here at the end of Tithe Pit Shore Lane. Try saying that when you've had a few. This appears to be the end of section 5, or the beginning of section 5, depending on which way you do it. This is Hamsey Green. It's quite an inauspicious end, isn't it? It's just a crossroads and a patch of green grass. But that is the end of the section of the London Loop I've been walking. I think this is where I'm going to end my walk today. A couple of reasons. The primary reason is I don't really fancy starting a section of the London Loop and only doing like a quarter of it or a third of it. I haven't done that so far. I've always done them in chunks. So although this is a shorter section, although I've walked considerably further than the 6 miles that it says the section 5 is, I can tell you that much. I'll pop up on the screen how much my phone is telling me I've walked. And it's a really hot day. It's about 20 to 7 in the evening. And sometimes you know when you've had your walk. Sometimes when I've done those really long walks is I keep going because I don't feel like I've had my walk yet, if you know what I mean. Whereas today, back there somewhere, I feel like I'd had my walk. What a cracking walk it is. The London Loop always delivers, never lets you down, never disappoints. I've never done a section of the London Loop and thought, well, that was rubbish. Always a great walk, and this is no exception at all. I think I've got quite a long journey home now to Leytonstone. So, as ever, thank you so much for coming on this section of the London Loop with me. We're back out there, I'm not going to make any predictions when I'm going to continue with the London Loop. Who knows? It could be another year, could be another week. That's an intriguing possibility. Tell me what you think down there. Would you like to see more London Loop in quick succession to get round to Erith, or would you prefer if I sort of space them out a bit every few months? Anyway, have a great week, take care of yourself, and I look forward to seeing you on the next walk, wherever that may be.